Let's go.
Hey everyone, Happy New Year's and welcome back or welcome to my channel. 2023 has been a really interesting year for K-pop, with new debuts still continuing to wow me. I can't wait to see what 2024 has in store for us. In terms of what 2024 will look like for this channel, there'll be a few changes that I will try to implement. The first being that I'll try to keep a fortnightly schedule, but I won't be pressuring myself to release videos for the sake of meeting the schedule. I'll also be trying to subtitle my videos from now on, as well as my older videos. And also, I just want to continue to improve the quality of my uploads too, so that's where some of that time will go towards instead of sticking to the same format that I've had. But yeah, that's my goals and intentions, and so hopefully by the end of 2024, I can say I've implemented these things well. As for today's video, I'm going to talk about the Blank and Friends discourse, which was inspired by former Dia's Chaewon's appearance on Universe Ticket. Her intro package to the show mentioned the feelings of the group being overshadowed by Chaeyeon, which is not the first time the sentiment has been shared by the Dia members. And so I wanted to look into this term as a whole and just the impacts it has towards groups. So yeah, before I start, I'd appreciate it if you can like and subscribe to my channel. But without further ado, let's start off with the definition. I think having a definition gives a good foundation of understanding the discourse of Blank and Friends. Obviously, there isn't a real definition for this term as it was created by the K-pop community, and so the term has been interpreted in many ways, which is kind of also a major reason as to why we see so much discourse. However, I have looked at the underlying intentions behind this term through the way people have classified groups as Blank and Friends to define the term as clear preferential treatment that lasts throughout most or the whole career for an idol, with every other member being relatively forgettable or unknown. I think major emphasis should be placed on the duration of the career because it seems as though people forget about the different factors that contribute to certain people getting preferential treatment that occurs in a temporary manner. One example of this was NMIXX's DICE era, in which K-pop discussions were being had about whether JYP was trying to turn NMIXX into Kyujin and Friends. Obviously, she's a really talented idol with the skills to carry a solo song, but after just one title track, and that's how quick our thoughts changed. However, if we look into everything post-DICE era, this seems kinda ridiculous to think, as each comeback has seen different members stand out. Noticeable inequity is taken at face value and thus leads to people claiming Blank and Friends to certain groups. If we take my definition as a more accurate representation of the term, then the amount of actual Blank and Friends are pretty minimal. The next point explains a lot of the incorrect classifications of Blank and Friends for rookie groups. Pre-debut hype seems to be a major underlying factor in how I've seen the K-pop community call certain groups Blank and Friends. I want to say it's pretty self-explanatory, but basically pre-debut hype is any activity done before officially debuting that has garnered the idol attention. And so obviously you would kinda expect them to generate more attention on debut regardless of whether the company intentionally puts them in the forefront, as people tend to grasp onto a sense of familiarity when they see new groups. K-pop is ultimately a business, and so from the perspective of companies, they would want to capitalize on the pre-debut hype of those individual members to secure a good foundation for the group to initially thrive. This is done through the hopes that the solo fans would then be converted into group fans by association. However, these days more fans are becoming solo stans. This increase in solo standing is thus where we could see the prominent reasoning for many to determine a group as Blank and Friends, as this would then lead to companies prioritizing them and giving them more opportunities. However, this does not always equate to that, as this doesn't mean that other members don't get opportunities. We can kind of see this with Kepler, in which Bahia is one of the more prominent members. However, the amount of solo activities that she gets does not equate to what you would potentially expect from her level of popularity. Most of the time, other members are starting completely fresh with nothing to their name, and so it requires more effort to grab people's attention considering the oversaturation of K-pop. It's also unrealistic to expect group members to receive equal treatment, as they don't all produce the same amount of success or bring the same level of attention. Everyone is so different, and so companies have to take that into consideration when utilizing the members in different ways. That's why any supposed blank and friends groups can start out initially looking like that, but the difference between whether they truly are blank and friends is the years after their rookie era, in which they start to establish themselves. Then we get to see whether the same members get highlighted or whether we see more members get their own chances to ultimately balance out the group's popularity. The two groups that come to mind when discussing pre-debut hype initially carrying them through their rookie days are G-Idol and IVE. With 2 years under the belt for IVE, we can see Wonyoung still more prominently known as one of the faces of the group, which is not the same as Blank and Friends. However, the other members aren't completely unknown, as they've all been given solo opportunities and have been able to distinguish themselves. Same with G-Idol. Soyeon brought so much attention initially and is still a prominent member to the group. However, this doesn't mean that the other members are just standing around idly and doing nothing. We've seen most of them release solo music, some of them host, and some of them act. These two groups show that there is effort to spread the attention between the members despite being labeled Blank and Friends. Whether this can be all seen depends on the viewers, which the final factor will kind of explain the different perceptions that lead to groups being seen both as blank and not Blank and Friends. The final factor is the different perspectives from the attentiveness of the fans to just casual listeners. Casual listeners tend to have surface level information regarding the group, and so their perspective of Blank and Friends come from what they hear, which tends to be news that transcend fandom news or stage performances. I can see how this gives the impression of Blank and Friends, but it doesn't negate the fact that other members may actually get their own individual opportunities too. This perception differs to actual fans who usually follow them a bit more closely and thus can see whether the treatment is actually giving Blank and Friends. This can kind of explain how Wonyoung and Soyeon may seem to be the blank in Blank and Friends. However, solo activities are still given out to the other members, which just might not be noticed as it doesn't transcend to become that hot of a topic. The question then could become more of whether the solo activities might be effective in establishing the other members. But also with the oversaturation of K-pop, many factors have to align for the idols to actually bring in the attention, as well as solo standing, influencing fan perceptions. All these different levels of attention vary the way that fans see the treatment of groups, which is why some see Blank and Friends and others don't. To really know whether these groups are Blank and Friends requires a bit more years of activities and a bit more surface level knowledge regarding the individual members' solo activities. Obviously, it's not that serious and that people are entitled to their own opinions that certain groups may look Blank and Friends. However, combined with the intent of how people use this term, it is clear that the term only leads to negative discourse to create division. And so it's clear that the term provides low value to achieving much. I want to say that there has been no clear cases of seeing the title Blank and Friends change the way that a certain group operates. And so my final question becomes, what does this term truly achieve? Final thoughts. Blank and Friends really aren't too prevalent within K-pop. I would say that there are a few groups that could definitely be seen as Blank and Friends. However, the bigger intent within this video was to highlight the realities and misuse of this term. Usage of this term has cultivated an environment of negative connotations and implications using surface level considerations to label the group. Regarding whether Blank and Friends would actually be good for the group's success, it ultimately depends on many factors to make a group successful. Being considered Blank and Friends won't directly impact the group's success. However, other factors may be implied and could influence the direction of the group's success. But yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching and let me know your thoughts on the whole discourse of Blank and Friends and whether you agree or disagree with how I've defined Blank and Friends. I haven't really decided what my next video will be, so feel free to suggest ideas in the comment down below. I do have some ideas in mind, but none of them seem exciting enough for me to passionately write about at this point in time. A video will come out eventually though, so please like and subscribe to keep up to date, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!